Uh-oh, I think you're muted. And I think I'm not muted. I hope. Tell me if I'm not.
How about that?
That's better. Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
Can you hear that?
I don't think so.
Okay. It'll just be irritating me for the rest of the evening. Alrighty. How have you been?
Good. Were you talking about the echo? I can hear a little bit of echo with your voice.
Okay.
You have like a technical difficulty slide with some catchy music you can throw up?
No. You'll have to do that. Get your guitar out.
Do, 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 do. I've been doing well. I'm excited to have more people to talk to. It's where we're still plugging into our new parish. Today was the ministry fair day at our parish, so I vastly overcommitted myself, and we'll see what sticks with the spaghetti I threw at the wall.
Yeah, that's the way of doing things, all right.
I think that the echo's gone. You sound good now.
Okay, I can still hear it. Yeah, got this monitor. It's got speakers built in. Who knows what it's doing? So I got to spend a little bit of time camping this last week, and I got to see the stars a little bit, which you don't always get to see. It reminded me of section, I think it's in Plato's Republic, where he's talking about the captain of the ship and how the captain of the ship navigates just by looking at the stars in the sky. And he's making a point in the Republic about how the sailors have to trust that he knows what he's doing, even if they don't understand how he could just look up in the sky and know where they're at. But he was using that as an example and as a given that people would use the stars for navigation. And then I was thinking about how we don't do that anymore. Now, when you need to go somewhere, Cord, where do you end up going? How do you end up getting there? Sorry. How do you end up getting there?
With as much as I hate to admit to it, it's my silly Google slavery device.
Yeah.
With the maps. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much beautiful symbolism too, not just like there's like the loss of the literal act of using the stars to navigate and the symbolism associated with, pulling your wisdom on where to go from the heavens. There's actually something specifically that I wanted to ask you about. So did you plan this segue?
I planned this little bit here. I didn't plan it with you though, because okay, hear me out. GPS satellites are man-made stars.
100%, yes.
100% they're man-made stars. They're literally in the sky, so it's that's pretty on the nose right there. And the only way that GPS satellites work is by being in geostationary orbit. So the satellite is always over the exact same place.
That's actually not how that works.
They're on geostationary orbit, aren't they?
The communication satellites are in geostationary orbit. The GPS satellites are in a medium Earth orbit, and they're not geosynchronous, which is why when you look at the little settings thing on whatever your GPS device is, you can see the satellites that you're currently connected to, and it's not always the same number. And you actually need a fix on at least 4 to have a good error reduction.
All right, you know what? I've had enough of these facts. It is way cooler to say that the GPS satellites are in geosynchronous orbit. But go ahead.
And we'll put Galileo in prison. Yep. Nope. No. Sorry, that was my That's my technical education cropping up. My
Well, somebody
which
should
is
have
very
education.
full of knowledge but lacking in wisdom.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not quite on the nose as I thought it was, but it's still things that we look to in the sky to tell us where we're at, where we're going. But this time we created them and they're under our control.
See, that's true. That's accurate, which is totally messed up, right? Because symbolically speaking, that's what is that? I don't know how would you describe that? That's circular, right? Like if we're the source of our own knowledge, then is it really knowledge?
Ooh.
It's not coming from outside of us.
Yeah, it's I mean, Mark was saying that they're running into a problem with these AI training sets, that they might actually get AI generated. Let's take an image generation thing, an AI generated images in there, and that ends up corrupting the data and like degrading the whole system.
Yeah,
because it's just becoming cannibalistic at that point. And Mr. Ulysses agrees with me. Man-made stars is a symbolic fact, regardless of the actual mechanism of GPS. That's why I only temporarily put Corey in timeout rather than kicking him off entirely.
I often deserve timeout more often than I get it.
Yeah, you're more in the role of giving it out than receiving it.
Yeah. So actually, I'll segue from that then, since you set it up so perfectly. One of the things that I really want to know more about and that I really want is spiritual direction. In the Protestant background that I come from, we have words like discipleship, which is kind of a one-on-one, mentor to mentee sort of relationship. They often point to Paul and Timothy as the archetypal pattern for that. But how I've heard of spiritual direction, but I've not experienced it. How does it work in the Catholic Church typically? Assuming that there are enough priests to go around, which I know there never are.
Yeah. So it depends on where you're at, as with a lot of these things. Some places it's highly organized and people get it done. But in a lot of places, it's a little bit scattershot. And in the Catholic, at least in the literature that I've read, spiritual direction as such is seen as kind of like a highly intense sort of thing, where if you're going to get the real deal, something that would relate to the Interior Castle by Saint Teresa of Avila, or the 3 Ages of the Spiritual Life by Father Garrigou Lagrange, it would be like this person is absolutely shooting for the top, and they're going to be getting into some places that they can't necessarily navigate by themselves.
Sounds like a lot of stuff we encounter here in this little corner of the internet.
Yeah, frankly, yeah. And then so the tradition has it that there's basically 3 stages, 3 ages of the spiritual life. There's the way of beginners, the way of the proficient, and the way of the perfect. Just remembering that perfect doesn't mean you become sinless, but there's a certain level of completeness that you reach. And a lot of people who are in the way of beginners will ask for spiritual direction, and what they really need is just a little bit of guidance and a little bit of growth and virtue. And so that doesn't end up becoming spiritual direction as such. It's something else. It's good. It's a useful sort of thing, but you don't need an expert. That's kind of the second part of Catholic spiritual direction. Just because somebody's a priest doesn't mean they're qualified to take somebody through those higher levels. Saint Teresa of Avila gave this advice in searching for a spiritual director, that if you had somebody who was very holy but somewhat lacking knowledge and training, and you had somebody who was basically on the right path, basically, basically a decent enough guy, but maybe not as holy as his first guy. But he's got the education and the training to know what to look for. That would actually be the preferable spiritual director because of being trained in the tradition of, here's when you get to these levels, here's what you have to look out for. Here's what you have to be aware of. So I'll try not to speak of things that I'm not all that terribly experienced with, but there's this notion of dark nights in the spiritual life, the notion of what they're called is also called as purgations. That you go through this purifying process in the transition between stages. So the first purification.
Oh, Dark Nights. I thought you meant nights like with a K. You meant like Dark Night of the Soul.
Dark Night of the Soul,
Very different image.
Very different. It's good to be clear about that. And
sorry.
No worries. So in the transition from the way of beginners to the way of the proficient, you have the dark night of the senses. That God is no longer acting as frequently or as directly, bringing that sensible consolation, that feeling of his presence. You'll notice for people who are just diving in, or just getting into things, they've got that energy, they've got that zeal, they've got that enthusiasm. We actually see that as very often, as long as it's being well directed. Signs of God's presence in the beginner, right? It's sort of like early on encouragement, the way you would encourage a child, even if they're not performing up to a certain standard. But it's like a 5-year-old's t-ball game, right? Everybody's just going to be smiling and cheering, no matter what happens, because it's a t-ball game. Like, don't get too caught up in that. But at a certain point, you have to move past t-ball, and the idea of being a Christian, of loving God, is just to receive these spiritual consolations. And so the Lord pulls away from that. He pulls away that sensible encounter with his presence, and then sort of leaves you with just the faith that you have, faith, hope, and charity. And that's
obedience
actually
without the feelings that come with it.
Right. And this is why you need somebody who knows to look out for that, and somebody who knows how to distinguish between, let's say, I'm just not getting the consolation prayer that I have grown accustomed to, and I'm committing this sin, and that's why God's withdrawing his presence from me. Other reasons, I'm sick. I've got some sort of chronic illness. So, you got to be able to distinguish those things. And so there's a tradition of how to interpret what a person's going through when they're starting to move into these higher levels of devotion. And that's what spiritual direction properly is. Now, we live in kind of times that don't promote virtues, especially the virtue of temperance. Because we have such outrageous abundance now, I think it's very easy to not be growing in temperance. And
is temperance related to, is that like kind of a Latinized version of ascesis, same sort of
probably
meaning?
Probably. Ascesis, I think, is a broader term than temperance. Temperance is pursuing bodily goods in a rational, not rationalistic, but a real way. Gotcha. Not going to excess and not starving yourself, basically.
Got it.
And so a lot of people spend years in the way of beginners, and that's the way God does it. And the sort of advice you give to somebody who's in the way of the beginners, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, being charitable to your neighbor, practicing obedience, all of those sorts of things, building good habits. You don't need spiritual direction proper for that. But a lot of people will end up calling that spiritual direction. And that's fine. It's like people don't have to know all of the correct words in order to be good, which is a good thing. But spiritual direction, properly speaking, is walking people into those higher levels of intimacy with God.
Yeah, that's really helpful, because I was kind of referring to, like, when I ask about it, I kind of had both of those two in mind. So it's helpful to know that just having a mentor that's almost more like a confessor, maybe somebody who helps you just develop virtues and good habits or something like that. I don't know if that would be that kind of role, but the reason that it occurred to me is like that, especially around here where we have lots of people who like to read an awful lot and self-educate, and there's a temptation that comes with that to want to teach all the stuff that you've learned, even though, who knows what books you're reading and what books you're missing. And we should be very hesitant to teach, because it's way better to stay silent than to teach something that would mislead people. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me like, I'm finding myself in my life, not necessarily online, but even online a little bit, like the more I participate in stuff like this, I have that temptation. And I also I'm actually in authority over people, IRL, so to speak, outside of this internet life, who I want to help. But the way that authority works is I can't properly have authority unless I have somebody in authority over me. And it seems to me, it should be more than just like a theoretical, yeah, sure, my priest is in authority over me because I go to church and he gives the mass. And that's true, but like, it should also be personal. It should also be like, I should be submitting myself to somebody else's, influence in my life, I guess. And so and I include the full meaning of spiritual direction, the way you just described it too, because I just this year, as I was leading up to my confirmation, I started practicing contemplative, how do you pronounce that word?
I think contemplative prayer would be the more common pronunciation.
Yeah. So I've just started dipping a toe into this Ignatian spirituality stuff. And I'm like, whoa, life-changing, incredible things happening. And I don't know what to do with it, because I'm getting some of my information from my Eastern Orthodox friends and YouTube people, and frankly, not a whole lot from the Catholic community that I'm just joining, because nobody knows or has the time to teach this stuff. So I like it. I want to keep doing it, but I don't want to go down a bad path. And I certainly don't want to teach other people to go down a bad path. So what would you do in my situation?
I would ask the priest to make an appointment. Just start with one. Hey, I'm got some questions about prayer. Can you help me out? And hopefully the priest will be able to be helpful. And you can usually talk people into at least one meeting. So, alrighty. I really hope this is actually Jacob. He doesn't have his camera on.
It looks like his picture.
Yeah, there's all sorts of weirdos out there. All right, I'm gonna leave him out until he wants something. Yeah, that would be my advice. I do like to be available here. And if you ever have any questions or you want to have a chat, I could usually make time for that. Especially given now that I pilot a desk most of the days, the opportunity to hang out with real human beings, because everybody knows that the chancellery is staffed entirely by robots.
Those AIs are good for something, I guess.
They are. They could write 4 letters for the bishop to sign. So yeah, be the way I would go about it is just start off with a meeting and see how it goes.
Wonderful. That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you were maybe offering a meeting with you too. So if I would take you up on that if that's an open
Yeah, I
offer.
just hope the whole internet doesn't try and take me up on that.
Well, you're the priest of the internet, right? And we've got the pastor of the internet and the priest of the internet.
Yeah, the pastor of the internet.
How much trouble did I just get you in?
None. You don't have any authority to get me in trouble. Directors don't give you mere direction. They provide that which changes during a journey. Okay. There's Mark being very insistent on vocabulary again. Yes. Bow down to my wisdom. All of you come to me and receive my wisdom. And then buy my merchandise.
Merchandising.
That's where the money is. The money's in the merchandise.
That's right. I'm surprised there's not more merchandise. I guess Grimm's got some good merchandise. I don't know if I've seen. I think there's a little bit of Grail Country merchandise. Surprised more people aren't jumping on that bandwagon. Mark has merch.
Yeah, Mark does have merch. Why don't you DM me a link, Mark, and I'll drop it in the chat, and I'll tell people. Yeah. And now he's monetized as of Friday evening. He's going to sell his soul to the great god Algo.
Is it Algo or Mammon? Or is that the same person?
I think Algo works for Mammon. Yeah.
Algo is the materialization of Mammon.
I'm not going to try and get too deep into this. Yeah. My beard is not gray enough to have wisdom. Clown of Babylon is right. By the way, congrats to Mark on the monetization. In addition to the cold hard cash that YouTube will give him, it also boosts him in the algorithm. So more people will learn how to navigate patterns and engage in live navigations. Okay, Ulysses doesn't understand the difference between a spiritual director and a priest. Ideally, all priests would be able to give spiritual direction. But at the higher levels, it is the case that not all priests would be suited to that. But they definitely do. They do blend into each other. And I would say most spiritual directors are priests, although there are some lay folks who do it and are actually rather sought out. So apparently there's a retreat center in South Dakota called Broomtree, and apparently there's a very highly regarded spiritual directress there. She's got like bishops who come in there for spiritual direction. So yeah. So yeah, not all priests, I think, would be suited for spiritual direction. And that's okay. Not the end of the world. We've got Mark's shop here. I think it's Sally Joe who ends up doing most of the designs on that. Do you want to take a look at some of that stuff? Let's just turn this into a navigating patterns commercial. That's what this is going to become.
I just pulled it up.
That's what everybody is looking for here. There we are. Shop products.
Nice.
Closed on Sunday for workers' rights. Doesn't that sound good? Aren't workers' rights important, Corey?
They're so important.
Yeah.
You should put a Chick-fil-A stamp somewhere in the corner.
This is my favorite one right here. This is the one I did this.
You did this?
No. I went to this website specifically to show this one.
I guess I don't get it.
Men are not large women. Women are not tiny men.
Oh, okay. Now I get it. It's got it. Yep.
Yeah, I got to read it that way.
Yeah, I was missing the appended one on the end there. I got men are not large, and I got women are not tiny. It's like, okay, but I see that.
Finish the sentence. You got to read to the end, otherwise it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Joke's on you. I can't read.
It's okay. Lots of good Catholics have not been able to read. Yeah. So the whole point of this T-shirt, Mark's spoiling the ending, is you have to admit that there's a difference that isn't mere language. Because if you can understand the shirt, and I'm afraid that you're counter evidence against that, but if you can understand the shirt, then there's something to masculinity, femininity, male and female, that isn't just a construct of human language.
It's good.
And then hopefully whoever you're talking to that's having a hard time understanding that'll just rage quit or something.
I think that's the ultimate goal, right? Just to get the other team to rage quit.
Yeah, well, if they rage quit, you win.
Mm-hmm.
You win because they forfeit.
Hopefully it's a ranked match.
It's only a ranked match if you have an audience. Honestly, we should just start ranking these things. It's like it's happening anyway, Ben Shapiro destroys all opposition, right? Like we should just get like a UFC kind of structure around it and have people vote.
You should pitch that to Daily Wire. I'll bet they'd do something like that.
Verbal death match,
The weapons of our warfare are zingers. I'm pretty sure that's what it says.
Zingers, one-liners, smackdowns, claps between every word.
Yeah, that's great.
No, Andrew, we're not going to play rank in video games on this stream. This isn't
Depends
Twitch.
on what video games.
Yeah.
Andrew, what games do you play? I don't know.
Friends with him on Steam. We could make that happen.
Oh, I don't go on Steam much nowadays, but add me anyway.
Okay.
Did you by chance see the Jesus Revolution? Oh,
I really don't watch very many movies. No, not that one. But it's a bunch of hippies, right?
Yeah, but I also discovered recently that it's basically my family's church heritage. Because I grew up in Southern California. Like I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, I've been all these places in this movie. This is where I grew up.
Oh.
So we were talking about it a little bit in the Grail Country server earlier. People were talking about having a panel on it, which I would like. But if you haven't seen it, then that would make it very difficult to have a panel on it.
It would. I would sit there and look all sacerdotal in my clerical clothing and not say much.
This is a good vocabulary word. How do you spell that?
Sacerdotal. Sacerdotal comes from the Latin word sacerdos, which means holy doer. More commonly translated as a priest.
Yeah, related to priests or the priesthood.
Yeah. So that's what's, I don't know, that's a funny linguistic point. We're always talking about hierarchy, but the word hieros in Greek is equivalent to sacerdos. It basically means priest, one who offers sacrifice and does holy things. So anytime, Dr. Peterson is talking about, hierarchy is inevitable, I'm like, yeah, it is. The rule of the priests. We're coming back.
Well, I feel like I heard somebody say recently that it was actually Dionysius who started making the word popular for the first time. Like Saint Dionysius the Areopagite and his celestial hierarchies and ecclesial hierarchies and all that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was a surprise to me. Like it wasn't commonly used in Greek philosophy prior to that point, but that would make sense if he was the first one.
Yeah, right, because it literally means rule of the priests. So it's the way we use it in English has drifted pretty far away from the original Greek language that he was talking in. I think the ancients would have talked about what our concept of hierarchy. They would have talked about that in terms of being properly ordered.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's been placed into its order, but I think in people's heads it's HIGHERARCHY.
It's an invented word, so you can spell it however you want.
Yeah. Because it's hierarchy. Yeah, but that's just what intuitively comes to people here. Good evening,
Hey,
Andrew.
Hello.
how's it going?
Life is good. How are you?
I'm good.
We're just
Thank
talking
you.
about the rule of the priests here. When are you going to become a priest?
We'll see. I don't know yet.
Oh,
Maybe I'll
you got to
finish my
talk about
degree
that with your
first.
spiritual director.
Sure.
Is this the joke? I feel like last time Andrew came on, we also joked about whether he's a priest or if you've signed up for all the things.
It might have been a different Andrew.
Oh, never mind.
But that
So-
is a common theme for young men. Pretty much everywhere I go. It's funny, if I'm with other young men, they'll often get asked, like, when are you going to be a priest?
That's
They'll be
like
like, they'll be like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm studying architecture. And they're like, oh, okay. And they look at the other guy and they're like, what do you do? And I think he does say like, oh, I graduated with a degree in philosophy or something. And they're like, oh, when are you going to be a priest? I'm like, so you got asked that you should be a priest, but I didn't. I think that's a sign you got to go to seminary.
I actually think that people with good architectural understanding would make really good priests, especially nowadays, because you have an
Yeah.
understanding of design of community context and spaces, which is a thing that we're getting into lately. You have to be able to afford space for people to live together in a certain way, and it requires more than just
Yeah.
abstract philosophical knowledge to do that, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, but that's more in a physical context. And usually the architect would do that, not the priest, right?
Yeah, but you have the ability to think that way. I think people who haven't studied design like that.
He's
Yeah, I guess.
he's using a $2 word right here. You want to hear the $2 word?
Ooh.
You'll be exapting your architectural abilities and using them in the priesthood.
Wow.
Ooh. Did you get that from
Exaptation.
Vervaeke?
I got that from Vervaeke. It's a fancy Vervaeke word right there.
I gotta start exacting.
Yeah,
I
we
guess
zapped
so.
all the time. But Cloud of Babylon, I just want you to know that on this live stream, we believe in pretty churches.
Oh
Just
yeah.
look at the background.
Amen.
Look at the background. That's the facade of St. Peter's.
Mm-hmm. All we have to do is break down a church and just reassemble it in America. We've done it before.
We've done it before, and we can do it again.
We have.
We can do it again.
Wait, there's historical precedent for this?
Yes.
Andrew, do tell us about this because I'm not actually aware of this story. And
Oh, well, there's a couple things people have done like this. One is not really a religious thing. They took a chunk of Ireland and brought it to New York, and that's the Irish famine memorial. The other is, I think this is it. The cloisters in Upper Manhattan is actually made of a monastery that was in like Europe somewhere, and Rockefeller hired people to take it apart brick by brick and reassemble it in Manhattan.
I found out.
So it's like the most American way to build churches. Let's just take it from home and bring it to our new home.
Yeah. No, Cardinal Mundelein in Chicago in the 1920s went to the Pope and was like, hey, I'm building a magnificent seminary that I'm naming after myself in the town that's named after me. And I want this pillar. And the Pope was like, no, you can't have this pillar. So Cardinal Mundelein built a replica that was 1 foot taller.
Okay. There you go.
The biggest importation of a church that I've seen was like a 14th century French chapel that they picked up out of France and moved to the Detroit Institute of Art. And so you could actually walk into just a little, it was like in some French manor, the Gothic architecture and the stained glass windows. They just really literally popped it out of this French manor, brought it to Detroit. But it had been amputated from its sacred context, which is sad.
Yeah.
It does make it kind of hard.
Yeah.
Emma said something about her home parish being a prime example of trying to fix an ugly church. My interest is piqued.
Yeah, she might not want to dox herself though, so we'll refrain from asking for her pictures of her parish. But yeah, sometimes you're kind of stuck with a building built in the 1960s, lots of brick, not a lot of windows, not a lot you can do with it.
That's kind of our new parish's situation. They actually, I don't know if they used to have a church building or if they're just so new that they never had one, but they stopped. Oh, hey, Emma.
Hi.
Nice to meet you face to face.
There we go. Nice to see you too.
Where's Colin?
He's right here.
He's still working on homework?
We're doing it in a second.
Okay.
We just got out of a D&D game and decided to come over here.
Okay. All righty. What an action-packed weekend there.
Sunday nights are very busy for computer things.
Was this?
I'm actually going to look if there are any good pictures.
It's like that's our situation too, and we also, our parish that we just joined is going through an upheaval too, because they offered the Latin Mass and now they don't, and so some people left, and there's like all this conflict with, some people, trying to figure out what to prioritize: beautiful Mass over loyalty to their local community. And there's also not an actual worship building yet. They're kind of holding Mass in what I think was intended to be the fellowship hall or something like that.
Here.
Yeah.
Can I share screen?
I thought you were going to say that it seems like a lot of churches are doing D&D.
I knew a church that ran a D&D group.
Okay, it will not. Why is Firefox like this?
Firefox? Who's still using Firefox in 2023?
Oh, I gotta.
People who don't want Google to own their lives.
That's why you have Brave.
It's like the DuckDuckGo of...
Isn't Brave built on Firefox?
Oh.
Or on Google?
It is built on Google. But
which makes basically the same. This is, yes. Notice the brick, no windows.
It still looks like it originally was a gym.
That actually looks quite nice.
Behind the wood
they've done a heck of a lot for it.
They built this whole wood paneling thing. But the actual building is all brick and has these horrible slit windows.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you that was actually supposed to be a gymnasium. And those hosers
never
never actually built the church.
Here's the issue.
feels
The
like it.
back of it actually also works. It has a little area where the actual organ's there, and it has this
It
giant
does have
window.
a bar lock.
So it kind of begs the question of if it was a church, how'd they make it look so much like a gym? And if it was a gym, why did they design it like that? It's like someone like halfway through decided, oh wait, this is the gym goes over there. This is the sanctuary. They had to try and like work with it as they did.
Yeah.
Gotta be a good story to it.
Well, like you look at the outside and it's just this brick monstrosity.
Renovating monstrosities.
Well,
It's like
you have to
the
compete
Pantheon.
full across.
Are you taking notes for the title?
Yes, you've noticed that I do that. I do that because otherwise it just says Sunday night open mic over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, smart.
I feel like churches could benefit from playing more D&D or D&D like games. Like I'm a fan of what Richard Rowland and Nate Heil are talking about.
Yeah.
Like it's a great way to build in a healthy imagination and get people interacting in healthy ways. And man,
What about a
it's
Minecraft
it's like a
server?
story.
Churches should have board game nights.
Oh, that'd be good. Ooh,
That's what we do now.
we do have to figure out a fundraiser. I wonder if you can make that work.
Yeah, I know a church that
work
does that.
for another church.
A
so,
different church, yeah.
Yeah,
Pay to
trying to
play.
figure that out.
Because there are like 3
Which
Catholic
one's
churches in town.
4 technically.
Sure, if you count the college one, which I don't.
Okay,
Newman
I was
Centers
gonna
aren't
say,
churches.
Okay, fine. 5 technically if you count the Spanish-speaking one. How dare you?
Okay,
Actually, the Newman
that's
Center-
on me.
Uh-huh.
That's on
Newman
me.
Centers would have a decent chance of actually being a parish.
Yeah,
How
this is
so?
a big one too.
Does not make sense to me.
Okay, Emma, but who here studying canon law? Give you a hint, it's this guy.
Okay, fair. Then explain it.
It might be a chapel, right? So it might be, although that would be more technically called an oratory. But most
area.
Newman Centers, I imagine, would either be a regular territorial parish, where their territory only takes up the college campus that they're on, or it could be a personal parish, where anybody who is a member or affiliated with the university can be attending there. Personal parishes were invented in the 19th century in America because the Germans and the Irish and the Czech and the French and they couldn't get along with each other. So you'd have
They
the
didn't
German
like going to the
parish
same
and the
church.
Irish parish or the French
Oh, I love
parish and the
it.
Czech parish.
You still kind of see vestiges of that in like South Bend because there are just so many churches and they each have a very strong character, even if some of them are closed down now.
Yeah.
So there's a
So
strong
what-
tradition of. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, what does personal parish mean?
So instead of your membership, so here's where our canon law is still very medieval and doesn't care about modern realities, is that your parish membership is determined by where you live. Full stop. Doesn't matter where you go to church every Sunday, and it doesn't matter where you register at. Where you live is where you canonically have rights to be your parish.
Right.
Unless there's a personal parish nearby that you qualify for. So if you go to St. Paul, Minnesota, you go to the Church of St. Agnes. That is the old German personal parish, where if you were of German descent or you spoke or primarily wanted liturgies and services in the German language, you would have the right to go there and receive the sacraments.
Gotcha.
So,
So for Christ the King in Ann Arbor, it's probably only if you are part of the charismatic movement that you qualify for it as a personal parish.
yes. Now the thing is that it's not an absolute sort of thing. So, you know, if you're a member of, I'll just use parishes in town. If you're a member of Saints Anne and Joachim, and you go to the priest there and say, "Hey, I want to get married," you can you have to get married there. Like the priest there has to do it. But if somebody from outside the parish wants to get married there too and the calendar's free, they'll probably let it happen. Unless they're one of those places that absolutely gets dog piled on marriages, in which case they have to start saying no. Go to the place that's built in a gymnasium.
Yeah. Well, like, for example, Christ the King, you can only get married if you or your parents are registered members there.
This is important.
I bet you they have a lot of
Because they have
people.
too many people.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty
So-
church.
It's a lot of things to consider when registering for a parish.
Yeah.
There
I
is.
was going to say there's a strong tradition of this thing called church shopping. You may have heard of in the Protestant traditions, if you can call
It
them
100% happens in Catholicism too.
that. I'm noticing this too, but from what it sounds like, it's not supposed to be a thing in Catholicism.
No. But like, look, this is on the pastors of the church, right? Like 100%. The reason that there's church shopping is that there's too much variety in our churches. Like, do you want to go to the place with the bongo drums and the guitar mass and all the kumbaya? You know, it's like, no, you don't want to go to that. You want to go to the place where they've got some decent traditional liturgy and music and all of that. So
I have that at a lot of churches here, though. I think there's only one bongo place.
So what I am trying to say is that if we had a little more consistency on the board, like, look, we're Catholic. This is how we do liturgy. Maybe less a church shop, because it's be like, wow, you go to every mass in the 30-mile radius on a Sunday, and they're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
Communities would probably cohere a whole lot better.
It is funny because thinking of just a few things for myself, I know the church we go to, it kind of stands out a little bit for a variety of reasons, but one of them right now at least is it's like the big lots and lots and lots of kids parish, from what I can tell in the area.
It's also the communion rail parish.
Also very true.
Union rails leads to babies.
Yeah, clear connection.
Clear connection.
And so, like, I could see people wanting to go here for, like, you know, that family orientation or being family friendly or just being around families. And it's funny, now that you say that, I remember one of the issues we had in my Protestant church back home is we have a large problem of this one church came out and had, like, this crazy, like, in-depth children's ministry thing. And a lot of families, like, left to go to there because it's like, you know, they have the nicer education for the kids. And that's the important thing is, you know, these guys have a cooler, more fun, exciting program. And it's like, that's not great. That's what church is all about. I know, as the Catholics especially.
Pause and recognize Jacob conspicuously cracking open imprimis on stream.
This is one of the three things I wanted to talk about when it was my turn.
Wait, is there a new one that we didn't get, or is this the Bishop Barron one?
This is the Bishop Barron one, commencement address.
It's his commencement address.
Yes, it is. And
what's imprimis?
Imprimis
it's
is
the Hillsdale newsletter thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've been getting it for years.
You can sign up for free. You can also sign up other people for free, but they might hate you.
I think I got signed up accidentally when I registered for one of their things, and then I probably unsubscribed myself.
I haven't
how active it was.
I haven't actually read it, but I just opened it up But right now, all of us who believe in God and are disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ have a common enemy in the agnosticism, atheism, and nihilism that are deeply affecting our culture and especially the minds of young people. Except for the Lord Jesus Christ part, I agree.
Shadow does too.
Man.
Hey, Chad.
Yes, she does. Shadow.
Yeah, it's the whole thing too.
She's
Yeah,
missed me. I
so
wasn't around for a few hours.
Oh no.
Oh.
How could you? I know our cat is having to adjust to me being back to school and not home all day, and she's very sad about it.
Well,
Very
okay,
unfortunate.
I have been around away for like 36 hours or so.
Oh.
She was home alone.
She also
Rough.
smother you?
The tragedy.
Which, this is the second thing I was going to bring up. So guess where I bought this?
Where?
I bought it at a Benedictine monastery I just happened upon in my travels,
That sounds
Like
about
what,
right.
guys?
called
Depends.
St. Andrews. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jewish mystical autobiographies.
Ooh.
Did you see any young monks there at all?
I saw a monk who looked like he was my age, a little bit younger maybe.
Okay. I don't know. The Benedictine library, like, there's so many Benedictine monasteries, and some of them are real solid, and some of them got kind of wacky in the 70s and are. But I don't know anything about Jewish mystical autobiographies. It might be really solid.
Well, it was in the bookstore, but I just happened to pass it because there were roads closed, and I'm passing by it, St. Andrew's Abbey. I didn't know what it was, so I just decided to like go in and look at the gift shop and stuff and ask them like, is this? At first, I was actually looking at the books. At first, I thought it was an Anglican monastery. And then I asked, is this Roman Catholic? And she said yes. And then when I was buying the book, I asked, because they had Trappist jam for sale. I asked, so is this Trappist? And the brother behind the counter said, no, we have the same rule, but this is Benedictine. I did not know that Trappists and Benedictines have the same rule, and I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, so Saint Benedict wrote his rule for monks in the 5th century, and almost every Western monastery uses that as the basis for how they do things. But the Trappists, you know, they were kind of like a reform group of Benedictines.
They're like hardcore, aren't they?
A good monastery, they will be pretty hardcore. They take a vow of silence. It's not an absolute vow, but during our silent periods, except under very certain circumstances, they don't speak. I think they're allowed to talk for maybe an hour a day. I'd have to actually look at their statutes to know what they were doing. But yeah, they could be pretty hardcore if they're sticking to their medieval founder's vision. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there was a Trappist convent near where I grew up as a kid, and they sold chocolate, and it was a really good chocolate.
So the third thing I was going to mention is tomorrow I am going to a super secret Catholic place that I can't tell you what the address is because it's actually a domestic violence shelter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be volunteering there. So
okay.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So either that or you're going to some sort of Vatican thing. It would be, shout out.
in Los Angeles?
Yeah, they got Archbishop Gomez there. You know, he's got connections. He's an Opus Dei guy.
You have opinions on that, right?
Everybody's got opinions.
Everyone's got
cheap.
opinions.
Opinions are very.
I went to an Opus Dei high school, so mine might be slightly more informed than other people's. I don't know.
I had an Opus Dei professor. That's about as far as it goes. And he said that anytime he had to fly overseas, he would take a melatonin pill and have a beer and a shot of whiskey and a glass of wine.
He sounds like a fun guy.
I think the idea was he would
Just pass out.
pass out on the airplane and wake up.
I like the variety
refreshed.
too.
Yeah. I can't.
Right.
just
It's
go
not
through
3
those.
beers. It's not 3 glasses of wine. It's not 3 shots of whiskey. One of each.
One of
Must
each.
be a special potion formula.
Cover your bases.
Well, I was so I'm just Googling over here. Do you guys know what chartreuse is? The liqueur? Not the color.
Oh yeah.
It's like my favorite liqueur. And I think the color actually comes from the liqueur, but it's made by monks in France. And I have not been able to
Carthusians.
find it. Carthusians. Okay, yes, that's what I was going to look up. I was going to look up what order they fall under. But they're like slacking on their production because I can't find it
Yeah.
anywhere right now. So I was
I heard
pants about that.
They refuse to
Yeah.
turn up their production in response to market forces.
I can get behind
That's
that.
what it was. Okay.
That'll just make it more
I thought
special
it was-
when I find it.
So imagine the
They're
price.
continuing. So I mean, their argument is, look, we make enough of this chartreuse and sell it so that we can support ourselves. Like, that's what it's for. So we know how much chartreuse we have to sell in a year in order to support ourselves. And we know at what price we need to sell the chartreuse to support ourselves. So that's what we're doing.
They should increase the price if there's a shortage.
Well, what would they do with all that money?
I mean, what is it? What is it?
They would help the widow and the orphan and the.
Then you gotta manage the money though. That's the problem though, is that otherwise it just becomes first come first serve, and that becomes complicated. Oh, they have a fun economic problem on their hands.
What does it taste like? That's what I want to know.
Oh, it tastes like itself.
Like
Honestly,
Brightwood.
it's really hard to describe the flavor.
It's unique. It's very unique.
Is it kind of like aromatic?
Yeah, it's very, like herbal and like there's a lot of there's a lot of herbs in it, and flowers and stuff. It's a secret recipe, but it's my favorite thing.
Only 3 monks in the world know it.
It makes me really happy that you know about this. Tell me more about my favorite liqueur.
There's like 127
We'll get
ingredients
close
in
to
it, and the
Probably
3
not.
monks all have it
Perfect memory.
memorized.
Wow.
Cool.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you haven't tried it, definitely try it if you're inclined. If you're not
If you
Baptist.
can.
Yeah, if you can. Yeah, sorry,
I
Chad.
actually have tried it, which is unfortunate because I've had it offered to me, but I didn't take the chance.
Ah,
Yeah.
who offered it?
Your grandfather, I'm sure, at some point.
Maybe.
Well, I just want to drop in and say hello. Now I'm gonna go bye.
See you, Chad.
Wait,
Good
Chad,
to
but you've been
know.
making so much good content lately. Ugh.
Yeah, right. dude. We don't want to get into it. All right, guys. Bye.
Chad's discussion with Billy Ray has been very, very popular on my channel.
I need to watch that. I have not watched it yet. To my shame.
I was actually quite proud of my framing of it. The most epic theological battle ever. Both of them arguing, stop discussing stupid shit on the internet and go do something real with your life.
I love it.
Preach. Preach.
They both won.
They both won. And they both had fun. At least I hope so. Oh. All right, Andrew, you burst the door down to get in here. Andrew T., what do you have to say for yourself?
Oh, nothing. Well, I've got like 10 minutes on here, so
Okay.
yep,
All righty.
yep.
10 minutes and nothing to say.
Pretty much.
Are you moved into your dorm yet?
No, not yet. I've got 3 weeks left. So
They're on a
Oh,
quarter
wow.
system.
3 weeks?
yeah.
California's on a quarter system. They start late.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
My school
Can
starts
confirm.
tomorrow. So
Yeah, mine starts tomorrow. You started this last week.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
What is
Well,
mine?
Wait, Andrew, what school are you at?
UCLA.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I'm from Orange County originally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yo, that's mad. Where you at now?
Now I'm in Texas.
Oh, okay.
I move all the time. Unfortunately, the weather here. Yeah, be glad for your weather there in LA, even with the occasional hurricane.
Yeah.
Like I moved to Texas expecting that I'll get a hurricane at some point, and then my parents get a hurricane in Orange County. Like, okay.
Don't look at me, man.
Andrew, you started it. Don't pretend otherwise.
Father Eric, Emma is slacking on the TLC Bible.
I know.
Ooh.
I'm sorry.
Ooh,
I'm trying to
snap.
pass my Greek exam.
Priorities here.
Hey,
Father Eric would love this project to die before it starts. Don't complain to him.
yeah. Is
But
this the
what-
one with the AI generated images, or?
No, it's AI generated lolcats translation.
Oh, right. Yeah,
It's
honestly,
worse.
like
It's worse.
I don't know how you guys think that's a good idea.
We are determined to make sure that it is in no way desacralizing of the Bible.
I don't know how that's possible with the premise.
Are you
That's like
also
that- that was like
determined?
that.
Okay, so I'll
There's the
Before we
Peter
go any
Jonathan
further,
Pageau
before
was
we
talking
go
to
any
Jordan
further,
Peterson.
I'd just like to remind everybody. Shh. Shh.
Oh,
TLC Bible just stands for the Lolcat Bible. That's all.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Like you're missing a
TLC
rule.
is the lolcats, and
Yes.
and my whole thing is every time I say, especially to Protestants, that like at least the Hebrew Bible has puns on almost every single page, they think I'm joking.
That's because they don't read Hebrew, I think.
The Bible is filled with puns, absolutely filled with puns.
I love
you
Protestant would have a
translate the
rejoinder, though. Protestant would say, at least we read the Bible.
And if someone wants to pay for Rabbi Mullet to come to Jerusalem, or Father Eric, although I don't think Father Eric even has the time.
What is
I
it?
am-
February?
Yeah. I'm hoping people will sponsor
Lent,
people to
isn't it?
come.
Because we have another Ash Valentine's
No,
Day.
it definitely is not because during Lent, because it's a Jewish leap year next year.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
A Jewish leap year.
Wait,
Yep.
when in February is it then?
February 24th.
Yeah, that's
It-
definitely during Lent.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah,
an
because
actual
it's Ash
Ash
Valentine's
Valentine's.
You guys still do the whole thing of like Passover has to be after the Jewish Passover, right?
No, that's an Orthodox thing.
Oh, you guys don't do that
Yeah.
anymore?
No.
We're not safe with those guys.
Mm.
Yeah, no. Our rule is.
So you don't believe in Nicaea?
Dun dun dun.
I suppose not.
Nicaea specifically said.
Yeah, that's discipline, not dogma. So
Wait, so
Father
is
Eric
the
is so
Catholic
over
and
this
Orthodox
conversation
Pascha
and
not on the
just
same
focused
day?
on remembering what the rule is.
yeah, it's February 14th this year.
Yeah, it's
And
Ash Valentine's Day.
Ash Valentine's Day. And
Ash
the
Valentine's
rule
Day.
is we date Easter on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox.
I'll take it.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Nicaea says it has to be after the Jewish.
That
Passover.
canon law has been abrogated because the Catholics have somebody who has the authority to do that.
Abrogating councils of the entire church. No wonder the Eastern Orthodox.
No.
excommunicated the whole-
Listen, Jacob. There's a very good explanation for this. That there's a difference between a dogma, which is a teaching, which is an eternal truth, and a discipline, which can be updated.
I know a few
Which
people that
is
need to know
the thing
that.
you do.
I'm starting to agree with.
It's also
the
why we don't
Eastern
do
Orthodox.
kosher Lord.
Oh
I'm
no,
going to
a
excommunicate-
Jew, a
I'm going
Jew
to
agrees with the
excommunicate
Eastern Orthodox.
the entire Catholic Church.
We're so threatened.
I feel like a medieval Catholic being like, the Jews don't agree with the Pope?
It's the filioque. I'm telling you, it's the filioque.
Now hold on. You were there
I did
when
like
I was
Michael
talking to
Lawson's video
Father
on that.
Stephen, and Saint Maximus the Confessor fixed the filioque in the 8th century.
He did.
Yeah, he just said, no, guys. What they mean is that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father through the Son. That's what they're trying to say. And I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably about right.
That's how you do theology.
Fix the schism. Fix the schism. We've got the fix.
Oh, it's too cultural nowadays.
You're gonna have to fix the calendar first. I mean, how can you have Easter before the Jewish Passover?
I don't know,
I
Ted.
mean,
How do we do
Jacob,
it?
because the Lamb was slain before the foundations of the world, so Passover is the echo of Calvary.
Okay, that's a darn good answer. I'll give him that.
No, it's not.
I mean, Jacob, if you agreed with me, then you'd be in the church. So, like, I'm not surprised that that's your response.
Yeah.
If you agreed with me, then you would be in the church.
Jewish circulation of Eastern Time 25.
Oh, we got real fact going down here.
Interesting.
Oh, hey, Mark's throwing shade down in the comments section. It's
Mark's
not hard.
been throwing
Jacob
shade.
doesn't think these things through symbolically because he's a materialist, as mentioned earlier.
Ooh,
Citation.
Call me a materialist. Like, calling me like a particular thing, unless you tell me why that particular thing is bad, doesn't actually make me like
care.
Yeah, it's like when people quote Paul of Tarsus at me, or I quote Paul of Tarsus, and they're like, "You're quoting Paul of Tarsus," and I'm like, I don't give him enough credit to be wrong every single thing he ever said.
It's like if you get a 0 on an exam, people know you're trying and you know what's like the material, because otherwise you'd get at least some questions right by just dumb luck.
Have you ever done that, Emma?
No.
Okay.
I care way too much about other people's opinions of me to do something like that.
I mean, intentionally failing a test takes some real moxie. Yeah.
I would be impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not have the guts for something like that.
I needed an A in a class, and it was a woke teacher, and I knew that if I wrote anything even close to real about the subject, I would get a bad grade. So I wrote the most sarcastically woke paper I could think of. I turned it in, and I got a perfect score.
A plus, 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 plus.
I was so sarcastic.
No.
I was so sarcastic. I posted the paper on my Discord so people could read like my sarcastic woke paper. And I got it 120 out of 120.
Now,
This is the way the world
does your status...
Not with a bang, but with sarcastic acquiescence.
Does your status as an Iranian Jewish refugee put you under the blanket of maternal concern with this professor? Or are you too white?
Yeah, I do claim to be gender non-conforming, but they don't believe me. Like, whenever I claim to be gender non-conforming, they're like,
That sounds like they're judging you. They're just assuming certain attributes are masculine and non-fet. You know, that's on them. Why do they assume that of that?
If you really want them to believe you, you need to dye your beard pink.
And then I would be gender non-conforming. But
And
then
you know
I would
what?
also
Now
not
they're assuming that
respect
pink
myself.
is feminine. It's even worse. You can just lambast them, although they don't like being lambasted, from what I can tell.
Yeah, wouldn't that be kind of judgmental? Then they're thinking you're not gender nonconformist. Not accepting your.
That's my whole
claim.
thing. Like, go
But
ahead
that's
and
the rule
tell
of
me I
wokeism.
am gender conforming. Like, By
Yeah.
what standard are you telling me that I'm gender conforming?
No, but that's the rule of wokeism: is you can't point out the incoherency and the hypocriticalness, because then they realize. Well,
It's like, what is
then
it
they get
when the
defensive.
white
It's a big
people
difference.
when the white people move into the neighborhood, it's gentrification. When they move out of the neighborhood, it's white flight. It's like,
Yep.
just give up.
You can't win.
Heads I win, tails you lose.
No. But what's her name? Who's that woman? Robin DiAngelo in her book actually says this. She says the question is not whether racism happened; it's how did racism happen. So if a black person and a white person walk into a store at the same time, if the clerk serves the white person first, it's racism because she privileged the white person. And if she serves the black person first, it's racism because she was trying to get the black person out of her store.
That's ridiculous. It's racism because she's privileging the black person.
Is that an actual example that Robin DiAngelo gives in her book?
I believe so, yes.
And is my official pronouncement on that.
Douglas Murray has started.
Jacob get me kicked out of school. It's fine.
has started like saying you did a racism, which is my favorite way of putting it.
Oh my gosh.
You did a racism.
It's that weird like millennial baby speak.
No, you have so much harder than me, because being a part of a Christian counseling thing, I remember the first year there was a guy who got like, what was it? Because we were talking about, we went through the multicultural stuff, and I actually did learn a lot about important stuff. There is something to be said about the argument of racism and such and so forth, and I got to learn a little bits and pieces of growing up in a town where we had this many colored people in the entire high school, using that term alone, such and so forth. So that was all good. We had like a guy literally like arguing that any sort of multiculturalism is a part of what is it? What is that? Is a part of not the 1619 project.
Diversity, inclusion, and equity.
Well, that's bigger. So we have too specific, too broad. The thing they're trying to teach in schools. Critical race theory. There we go. Try to argue that all multiculturals talk is critical race theory, and why are you teaching critical race to the Christian counseling? And the Christian counselors had to explain it. And we're all just like, that's
this guy was arguing that literally learning about other cultures.
Critical race,
and that they're different.
Yeah,
is critical race theory.
Yeah,
I mean, look,
but the fact that he could bring this up, and we're all just like, man walked out of that room without getting stabbed or verbally destroyed.
He was allowed to remain at the school.
Yeah. I have it much easier. We're all Christians and so on and so forth. So we have a weird, the usual Protestant spectrum of conservative, liberal, not any of the hyper that you get. Although I feel like if you were a Catholic school, you could possibly get the hyper liberal. And I think that goes more liberal than Protestant liberal. I don't know.
All sorts of strange places.
All my teachers are woke, but most of the other students are not.
That's the funny thing isn't the statistic something like 3/4 of all counselors are like religiously Christian or something like that?
Yeah.
Where I think because we cite that at CCU all the time, where it's like, guys, don't listen to what they say. We're the most secular profession there is in the world. We're the most such and so forth. But most counselors are by far Christian religious, and their whole thing is like it's a matter of time. Put the work in, and the tide will change. Not sure if that's accurate or not, but
well, just because they're Christian doesn't mean they can't be woke.
True. I can't remember exactly what their argument was in particular, but I think it was we can manage for Christianity to be acceptable in the counseling sphere as like a part of it. Especially now people have been realizing recently that you can't ignore people's faiths. That's not actually that helpful. And that's really put a wrench. Yeah, right? As it turns out, that's like helpful for some people. I mean, the original
When you say
theory
counseling,
from
are you talking about like psychological, like therapy?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. What is it? Jacob, correct me. Is it what's his first name? Ellis? Ellis was his last name. REBT founder?
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Something like that. He was famous for saying about the fact that religion was one of the psychoses you need to help people get out of.
Ugh.
So
That sounds like the type of thing Freud might have said.
Freud also was in that argument, but Ellis was
Yeah.
his whole thing was rational motive behavioral therapy, and I actually liked it. It was quite nice, but it's all about rational logic and finding like incoherency in thought. And one of his is that if they start propounding anything about God, that's incoherent.
That's fundamentally irrational.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was a huge proponent of Viktor Frankl was because Frankl just didn't have any truck with that. So
Yeah. No, Freud does a great job of getting rid of a lot of people. I'm an Adler fan, and yeah, there's a lot of broken friendship with that guy, Freud.
I had a conversation Thursday night. It was the first men's group at my parish that I went to, and they got into a great conversation that went from homeschooling philosophies all the way to psychology is super evil and you shouldn't study it because Freud and everybody after him was super evil in psychology. And I was like, I mean, no. But
It's a little bit broad of a brush.
Yep. Where do you guys study? Are you both in school, Emma and Colin?
Yeah, I'm in Illinois.
So is
and
Colin.
you're on-
Yeah, so I do online Colorado Christian University, and she does in person University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign.
So I'm trying to figure out what course of study to follow now because I've got some time to do it, and I don't know if I want to do like classics or theology or psychology, and I also don't know what school. But it's probably got to be online. So I ask everybody this question now.
Yeah, I don't know if you can really do online classics. I don't
does sound
know how
hard.
many places there are that do that.
if you are thinking of becoming a counselor, I still think an MSW is best. LSU has a pretty good online MSW program, and Arkansas State has the cheapest, although it's kind of hard to like if you don't have the prerequisites, they make you take them. Like LSU, if with a bachelor's degree, they should take you.
But Corey, you should also just do ASU because it's Arkansas, and then you can come and be part of our parish, and then everything will be amazing.
Oh, both of these are online, and you don't have to be anywhere near the actual school.
Shut up, Jacob. Shut up, Jacob. Corey's going to move to Arkansas.
And do Arkansas.
I don't need an excuse like that, Ted. I don't need any excuse. I've got plenty of reason.
So Corey, what is the impetus for getting another degree?
So that's part of the question too. Like it's less. Well, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life as soon as I get out of the military. Is kind of the backdrop of all of this, and I think it's going to be something related to all this stuff that I've been learning from all lovely people like you and all the other YouTube types. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I don't know. I have this, like, as far as we've gotten, is my wife and I, we both are passionate about, now we're passionate about beauty and design and also about how beauty will change the world. And I love theology now. I mean, I don't know. We're thinking like some kind of L'Abri project, actually, somewhere in the Midwest where it makes sense, where we could build a beautiful house and make it a retreat center or like a place where you can have a constant estuary-like vibe going on and invite artists to come and talk and maybe
French
Just
salon.
build a compound in the middle. of the
Too late.
field.
I already started that project, so like you're kind of late. Sorry.
Is it in California?
He's going to be a part of your network.
it's in his
David.
apartment.
Come on.
It's in his apartment. Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, I'm not moving to any compound or commune that's in California.
The question will be once we have enough money, we'll figure it out. But until we have money, like it's kind of a little.
That is a key consideration.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I also want to write things. I don't know. I just want education. I don't know if it has to be a degree, but I've got a GI Bill that I can use. So if I can do it formally, then why not?
If you can make the government pay for it, make the government pay for it.
Admittedly, for Christian counseling, so kind of that intersection of theology and at least counseling, not necessarily psychology. There's a bit of a difference between those two. Colorado Christian University is really good at that. They're really good at integrating those two and trying to show how they mesh nicely. It's a bit of a specific thing, though. Becoming a Christian, like, you'd probably want to, at that point, become a Christian counselor. And that's, I feel, easier said than done. Even I'm not exactly sure that's what I want to do, just because you're a little pegged very carefully. That's not a very large group to easily get into.
And it's definitely not the same thing as spiritual direction.
No, although the Divine Mercy University has a specific something. I can't tell if it's a certificate or if it's a degree on spiritual direction. Yeah. I've been trying to look into that because that just sounds interesting. I don't know where I want to go. I don't want to know what I want to do yet, but probably at least a couple of years secular, just so I can have that experience under the belt and be able to say that. But you never know.
Spiritual direction certificate.
Yeah, right.
You could be like ordained for that.
Technically, no. We have quite a few spiritual directors that actually aren't priests, especially because they're so. Oh my gosh, I work for a priest. People are unbelievably busy. I've never met a man more busier than my priest, the one I work for. I don't know my other priest.
He just needs to become more efficient, I think.
He tries. That poor man.
Yeah, but he also is kind of scatterbrained.
Well, he does have ADHD, yes.
Yeah, okay. Himself.
That being said, I've also never met someone. That's not quite true. He's very, very shockingly disciplined, and I think it's been like forcefully. But his major phrase is like, if I don't have to do it, don't ask me to do it. Like, you need to do your own thing. And he's still over inundated with huge amounts of things he need to do for this, that, and everything. It's a little bit difficult.
I have to point out, Sandy's been going to Catholic Mass.
Yeah, right.
We talked about that a little bit last week, and I don't want to play the cruel dentist trying to extract wisdom out of her. So if she doesn't want to talk about it anymore, that's fine. But
no wisdom.
No wisdom.
Sandy's wisdom is in her wonderful stories.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
There we go. Am I back? Am I actually back?
You're back.
Can people hear me? Awesome.
Yeah.
Corey, I was going to say, it just finally clicked with me when you're talking about what you want to do, that there's a professor up in Christendom College, Dr. John Kudebeck. He's a professor of philosophy that is like doing exactly what you're talking about. He's up in Northern Virginia. So it's actually, I think you were like right up there. I'm like, dang it, if like I had known about this, if we had known each other like a month earlier than we met, I could have gotten you connected with
Classic University
Dr. Kudebeck. But yeah, he'd be someone to. He's got some cool lectures on the Thomistic Institute, but he's a classically trained philosopher, but he spends a ton of time thinking about the household in particular.
Oh,
and its relationship with it's really good stuff.
I've got another tab open. Thank you. Find this person.
Always trying to do that in your mind, Corey. It's just like one more tab. Father Eric, you would probably find this really interesting, and maybe the rest of you guys. Today we were out of state in the morning, and we went to a parish with the Ordinariate of the Seat of St. Peter, and so we got to go and celebrate the Sarum Rite, which was a new experience for me.
Adapted version of the Sarum Rite, but
yeah. Well, listen,
the Sarum Rite was the use of the Latin Rite that was dominant in England prior to Henry VIII. The wicked Henry VIII. And then he kind of like really massaged that. I mean, not him personally, but his Church of England cronies really massaged that into the Book of Common Prayer. And then in 2009, Benedict XVI passed legislation that allowed entire Anglican churches to join the Catholic Church, and canonical structures for governing that. It's called the Anglican Ordinariate, and what the one in the United States is the Anglican Ordinariate of St. Peter.
I thought about that, being baptized Anglican, but yeah, well,
if there isn't one nearby,
It's hard to find them.
Yeah,
There isn't one nearby.
I just want to make a nice standard Catholic, you know.
Can Episcopalians join it as well, or Anglicans only?
I suppose if there was an entire Anglican congregation that wanted to be, or Episcopalian congregation that wanted to be Catholic, they probably could. But I think all of the ones in the United States were Anglican Church of North America, to Catholic, which is a pretty understandable trajectory.
What is the difference between Anglican and Episcopalian?
Very little.
Not intending to be controversial, my grandfather was Scottish Episcopalian, and I don't know any family over there from either side. I was just curious who was.
I'm making a slight joke because my grandfather, he's actually Anglican bishop. I never know.
He is a retired bishop.
He's a retired Anglican bishop, and he actually was an Episcopal bishop, Episcopal priest. I can't remember exactly the timeline. But he specifically helped start the Anglican Church in the Great Lakes area. So an offshoot of Episcopals. So in our family, there's an important distinction between the Episcopals that essentially kicked him out. It was a whole thing because he opposed being married.
It's the classic mainline conservative split.
So it was a whole thing, but that's generally the better way of summarizing it to kill the whole story halfway through.
Yeah, sorry.
So it's like, is the main difference just like whether they submit to the monarch of England as being the head of the church, and otherwise it's the same?
I think the Anglican Church in North America isn't their bishop like they're in communion with these Nigerian Anglicans?
Yeah, that's the complication.
Because the Archbishop of Canterbury is mainline, not conservative.
Yeah.
And he's the head of the Anglican Church and then the Episcopalian Church.
I was going to say, because the politics gets complicated. I watched a video on this, so it's not like I don't know all that much. I remember growing up with it and hearing about it, but that didn't make sense to me as a kid. And I watched a video on it. As I understand correctly, the Episcopals, when they went hyper-liberal, originally were reprimanded, but they were not, they didn't schism or anything like that, although they didn't listen either, so it was a mute point. But they specifically did schism because that's, Church of England's very specific on that. We don't have any sort of important theological, points as long as we're together. You can be anywhere between Presbyterian and nearly Catholic as long as you get along. But then the conservative element, which is primarily Nigerian, and then the offshoots in America, the offshoots are technically in schism because they offshot, but they're considered legitimate by the Nigerian conservative churches and not the Episcopal churches, or at least that's under discussion right now. And so it's complicated because the Church of England would not acknowledge the Anglican churches in America as Anglican, and so they're not technically Anglican because it's like it's like a pope not acknowledging a person, like they're not Catholic at that point. But if most of the other churches acknowledge them as being Anglican, what?
Aren't they Anglican SSPX?
Probably, yeah. That's probably accurate. That's what Bumba probably is. But it's awkward because most of the Anglican Church acknowledges, other than like Europe, acknowledges them as correct. And so, who knows when you don't have a pope?
I'm thoroughly confused.
It's all over gay bishops.
Yeah, correct.
It's all over gay bishops. The United States consecrated a gay bishop, and a lot of conservative congregations wanted the Archbishop of Canterbury to tell them they can't do that, and the Archbishop of Canterbury refused, and so these people went off to join the Nigerian, under a Nigerian archbishop, and the Archbishop of Canterbury is like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, but again, no one wants to use harsh words. So if I remember correctly, there's some specific phrasing they use where the line of schism and what they're doing is a little bit pulled back. So therefore, no one knows what's going on. Gotta love it.
Your voice is incredibly loud. I don't know if it's that loud to everyone else, but it is incredibly loud.
Me just directly into your ear.
Colin, what did your grandfather say about you becoming a Catholic?
The general Anglican phrase, which is, that's awesome.
I'm so happy for you.
In particular, it was kind of funny because I grew up relatively anti-Catholic. My father, quick version, my father was Catholic. His family was a little bit spiritually abusive, and so he
generally abusive.
And generally abusive too. That's true. And so he actually kind of refound God through my mother, who is like charismatic, because my grandfather is charismatic Anglican. She's just charismatic. And so I grew up with a Catholic father and a charismatic mother, but none of the Catholicism really stuck, except the bit that my mother didn't like. So I grew up generally anti-Catholic, but my grandparents, being Anglicans, are just like, that's no problem. And so I converted. It was a big deal between my mother and I, especially because I'm a right prick, and I had freshman effect like nobody's get out. But they were just like, that's great. We have all these, we love John Paul II. Here's a book on him, another book on him. I've gotten a lot of JP2 books from them. It's pretty great.
Yeah, they just, some people's grandparents hand out candy. Yours really have just given us books every time we see them.
Yeah.
Best grandparents.
They're pretty amazing.
Ever.
Yeah.
Right? No, they're pretty amazing.
You have to move.
That's the downside.
That's why I have a
think
Kindle.
About that right now.
The Kindle moves very easily.
Yeah.
No,
yeah, but
they're
nobody can inherit your Kindle library. Like, that's what bothers me. Like, now
it's going to inherit my library, Jacob.
Well, the next priest of your parish.
You weren't going to give it to me, Father?
You were going to give it to somebody. Like, you could give it to somebody. Like, there's a value in like people giving books to other, like, I have all these books on my Kindle that I will never give, whereas like the books I buy after I read them, if I'm not going to read them again, I try to give them to people.
Yeah.
No,
and you can't write a nice little inscription in the cover of a Kindle book either.
Yeah.
All of these are fair and valid points.
That said, I love my tablet and I love reading things on my tablet. So
usually my Kindle is used for ephemeral purchases because not all books are created equal. And so my 8-volume set of the Summa Theologiae, that's worth hauling around, right? Latin, English, side by side. Oh, it's let's do some theology, baby. But like some novel, the novel can be forgotten. That's fine. We've also got some key, like something else I could hand on would be.
We're doing book show and tell now.
Ooh.
That makes me want to go grab my newest.
See, if you had Catholic grandparents, Colin, they would give you books like this.
Ooh.
True. They haven't gotten that far yet.
The Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma. Now, that's a book right there.
Sounds
Half
like
of it's written in Latin and Greek. You'd be asking Emma for help reading it.
Sure, that would happen regardless.
Yeah.
This is a big word. I don't understand it.
Just gonna flip right into Latin all of a sudden.
Nice.
Yeah. So
what's fun is when you're reading in Latin and then they flip into Greek.
Also does that. So
all right.
Anyway, this is a book, Jacob, that I would say is worth passing on. That's the whole point of that.
Nice.
Oh,
yeah.
Are you showing this off because of Jacob?
I do want to show this to Jacob. We went back to my parents' house recently, and I was able to retrieve this. Which
I'm so sorry.
I had to buy.
Uh-oh.
What? It has the Hebrew part, and then I can
Well,
practice
I'm
reading.
glad you have the Hebrew. I am very
It's a
glad you
Hebrew
have
book
the
that I
Hebrew.
already had, so I can start learning Hebrew.
And I think that it's quite possible you could get your bishop to give you permission to have the English parts as well without tearing them out, and it wouldn't be necessary to like burn the English parts of that book.
Well, it is good to know. We had to, what is it? I had to buy it for a Great Books class to read the Book of Jonah. I don't know why she wanted this translation.
It's
possibly just because it was the only Hebrew English side by side you could get affordably. That might have been.
This isn't that bad. It's $60.
That's a lot when you're also buying like 6 other books for the same class.
True.
Yeah, but it's a translation by people who believe in God.
It's fair. I will say, I know the professor was Catholic. I don't know. Like, I know she knew Hebrew. I don't know, like...
JPS is very popular, and, yeah, JPS, but the Jewish Publication Society was not in... It's still not in any way orthodox or theistic.
Dang.
Fair enough. But this way I can practice reading Hebrew once I start working through the textbook again.
You have the Hebrew.
And I already owned it, so.
And there's my Jonah playlist. I went through the entire book of Jonah letter by letter in Hebrew.
Nice.
That would be, yeah, I will probably start working through that at some point.
That's back before the Just Chatting streams.
Yeah, it's way back there.
So if you memorize the half-hour introduction I give to Hebrew at the beginning of my Jonah playlist, you will know the entirety of Hebrew grammar. I'm not even joking.
Nice.
So this is going to sound like a stupid question, but it's a serious question. If you have trouble memorizing things, what's an alternative to doing that?
There is a really good channel called Aleph with Beth.
I watch them.
And they do an incredibly good job, despite the fact they're Trinitarians. God have mercy on their souls. No, they're Protestant missionaries in South America, and she's a linguist, and he helps translate the Bible to obscure African languages. And they do these wonderful videos teaching biblical Hebrew, and it's all completely free, and it's so much better than any content I could ever create that I don't even bother trying to, like, I just tell people. Aleph with Beth. And they're incredibly nice people. Like, they're such nice people, it's like disgusting.
Now let's slow that down a little bit. Aleph with Beth?
Yeah, her name is Beth.
Okay, and that's a pun because Aleph and Beth are the first 2 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
You figured that out.
I just for the people who, let's say, don't know that, the YouTube channel, it'd be impossible to, because it sounded like one name that was like a proper name.
Oh, Aleph, Aleph, with Beth, Beth.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, Father Eric.
It took me a second, but I know just enough about Hebrew to get dangerous.
It's about where I'm at now. I'm hoping to brush it up.
So she does natural language, and she's like a linguist, and they actually met in Israel. Like, their story, they have their personal channel. They have the most sickeningly sweet, like, love story. They met in Israel while they were studying, and then they became missionaries, and like it's just completely disgusting.
Horrible people with their happy life.
What's the exact word? Cloying? I think that's the word for it. Cloying. Am I using the correct word, Emma?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cloyingly sweet. Yes, they are incredibly. And he has all these free books on theology on his website, and music. And
Well, what's his website? I haven't checked it yet.
I think his name. I think it's under his name, Andrew Case. He has a very. I mean, I disagree with a bunch of stuff he says, but like it's still worthwhile reading.
Yeah, but they're Trinitarians teaching Hebrew, isn't that confusing?
Look, if you don't learn Hebrew until you're an adult, you can. Confirmation bias is a hell of a drug.
Jacob, I'm going to make a new tile for this channel just for you.
Ooh.
A new tile.
A new tile, right? Like my other tiles. Thankfully, I haven't needed this one in a while.
Oh my gosh.
No anime zone?
Yeah.
Oh, didn't know I could trigger that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's take that off, huh? Get it out. Yeah. Okay.
Is that slide only for Mark?
So poking at that tile issue just a tiny bit. So I did go to 9 a.m. Mass, but I also ran into somebody that I work with and realized the priest spent 10 years in my previous hometown.
Oh, wow.
So like I'm not praying the Trinitarian stuff. I'm not doing any of those things. I'm just kind of sitting there trying to be invisible, and I'm not, because every customer to my store recognizes me and apparently, yeah.
I have to say, I am personally of the opinion that the monarchical trinity is permissible to Gentiles.
I still haven't figured out what that is, except that all I know is I had this massive argument with God, and so I became a Christian, even though I went, this sounds stupid. And I've been doing that for like 40 years or more.
Well,
Father Eric is one of the greatest Catholic theologians who are in favor of the monarchical trinity.
Considering the monarchical trinity.
So
I think it might just be a new name for regular old Trinitarianism.
That's the feeling I've gotten.
Yeah, from what I was explaining.
Honestly,
from how much I understand it, which
honestly, I'm 100% in the never ever show a depiction of the face of the Father ever camp.
Michelangelo.
No icons of the Father at all. Which, hey, yay. B, only the Father is Ase.
Ase?
Ase. A-S-E-I.
Of himself.
Yes.
Oh,
and it's like, that's going to get really hairy really quickly.
Ase.
I mean, don't you deal with the two issues of begotten, not made, and consubstantial? Where are those?
It's gonna get hairy, Jacob. I'm not saying. Oh, it's gonna. Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, if you say only the Father is Ase, you're saying only the Father is God. As far as I'm concerned.
Okay, but so my practical questions to you and Father Eric is, if I go and sit in the pew and I kneel on their little kneeler thing that I haven't had one of since 20-something years ago, and I'm kind of, like I know people there. I told this girl that I worked with, well, I'm not so sure I believe in the Trinity, and she's getting confirmed there or something, only discussing the what. Yeah.
That'll confuse them, yeah.
Go talk to the priest.
Well, yeah, actually he was busy talking to her.
No. Go talk to the priest some other time.
Other time, yeah, I know. I will have to.
Shoot me an email.
You've opened this hornet's nest for me, Jacob.
I am very much in favor of people going to church. So much so that I've been going to church myself.
Yeah,
Wow.
I had a really sore neck this morning. I thought I could just lay here and not go to church. And by the time that you decide this, you're going to realize Jacob's already going to church at least twice today.
I actually didn't end up going to church at all today.
There
And
you go.
one of the reasons Father, like I was almost on my way to church and Father Eric's like, are you gonna? And I was like,
Well, I know. I was just asking. I was just asking because if you don't piggyback this onto your channel, then I posted it to the YouTube channel. So
you gave me an excuse. I try to find every excuse I can not to go to church.
oh boy, that sounds like a pretty familiar story, actually.
I only go to church because I feel compelled by an evil spirit.
Oh.
Don't believe him for a minute, because honestly, I actually wrote on Grail Country that I think God must love that man very much, because it takes great skill to send me somewhere an answer to a prayer question to God and actually have the priest from my that I know by face and everything, and other people there that I recognize, and now I feel kind of, like I said, he's opened a hornet's nest. So I have to deal with this now. Yeah. And when you can feel God laughing at you and you know.
Allow me to introduce Jules.
Hello?
Although, why isn't your video on, Jules?
Or
Jules is Father Stephen.
Reason for that.
We're not
spiritual son.
I was about to say that.
Can you guys hear me?
No, you're droiding.
Oh, wow.
Okay, you can. The reason why
You know, I'm just going to fill that in for him. I think the reason why his webcam isn't on is because his internet connection stinks right now.
Yeah.
So what he was trying to say was, he's Father Stephen DeYoung's spiritual son, and he probably had comments on the monarchical trinity.
Yeah. I'm not going to actually put 2 feet in and jump on the monarchical trinity thing until I talk to a proper Catholic theologian who's smarter than me about it.
There's Brett Suckold. You could talk to Brett Suckold.
That would actually be a really interesting conversation.
And he would come on your channel. I'm pretty sure he came on PBK's channel and Sam Adams' channel. Sam Tiedemann.
Yeah, and every time I hear an Orthodox person poo-poo transubstantiation, I'm like, dude, if you read Sokold's book, you'd be on board with it. The problem with transubstantiation is Catholics.
Could you
explaining
give me
it
that
badly?
one? Because I was listening to the Lord of Spirits on the Eucharist, and like I was kind of convinced about the East Orthodox view on transubstantiation. So I would like to know the name of this book.
I think it's The Eucharist.
Yeah.
I think that's the name of the book, is The Eucharist, by Brett Suckold. So, Salkeld, I think it is. He did the rounds of this little corner for a little while.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop this in the chat here. He is friends with Bishop Barron, apparently. So, hey.
Oh, hey, local to Texas.
Ooh.
That's where Word on Fire is. They're hanging in Texas.
Wait, it's in Texas?
Great photo.
Yeah.
We're in Texas.
Even though Bishop Barron's in Rochester, Minnesota.
Yeah, well, before he was in California and it was in Texas, I think that's just where they found space to.
That's the book, Transubstantiation.
Yeah. So, frankly, basically, what it comes down to is people, even good Catholics who are trying their best, are always going for overly physicalist interpretations of transubstantiation, and it just ends up sounding bad. And then the Orthodox look at that and say, that's overly physicalist. But if you actually read Thomas Aquinas properly, then
I have no idea what an accident is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and yeah. So, but the basic core of it is that substance is what is known to the intellect. That's what Thomas Aquinas means when he's talking about substance. That's what's known to the intellect alone. And accidents are accessible to the senses. And so, by faith, your intellect can know that what to all physical appearances seems to be bread and wine has become the body and blood of Jesus. Even though all of the physical appearances and physical properties continue to be bread and wine. And I bet you if our Orthodox friend Jules hopped in here, he'd probably say, well, that sounds about correct.
Hello.
But I don't know if we're going to get a better internet connection now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You guys hear me?
Better.
Mostly.
Hello?
Almost.
Yes.
We can hear you mostly. Got you like 70%.
I'm driving right now. That's why my internet. That's bad because I'm driving right now. You guys hear?
Jules, I'm just going to have to ask you to come back on
when you're not driving.
When you're not driving, because
yeah,
that's not communication right there.
Sorry, Jules.
Yeah.
That's hard to hear. Yeah.
Jules is on the board of directors of my new charity.
Nice.
Yes.
All right.
We needed a CPA, and he's trying to become a CPA. He's already an auditor, so you can tell I'm keeping this above board.
I like it. I like it. Oh, we have a friend over here.
Oh, another cat.
Another cat. Your stream is infested with them.
I don't believe in having wild animals inside the house.
Yeah, we need more dogs on this stream.
I was gonna say, if we're doing that standard, I feel like I'd be the one outside versus this prima donna.
You,
Happy
at least,
is
Colin,
sleeping
can be
with it.
somewhat tamed by a woman. So
That's true. This cat cannot.
the oldest written story that we have. The
Here's a
Epic of
dog on the
Gilgamesh.
stream. There we go.
Happy. I love the eyebrows.
Great colors. I love his face mask.
I love the fact that Happy didn't jump on me.
That's fair.
Like, I just, honestly, I will probably be very good friends with your dog if it just doesn't put its paws up on my cassock.
Yeah.
Just keep all four paws on the floor. We're good to go. So anyway, strong opinions about that. Not that Happy particularly wanted to be pet.
She's very shy.
Yeah.
Sandy, you're muted.
Sorry. Can I ask one more church question?
Sure.
Okay, so this last year is me going to church first time in 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Previous to that, I was super involved in leadership and all kinds of stuff. So it kind of matters to me that I don't insult anybody there, you know.
Okay.
So I don't know whether you can answer or Jacob can answer, but quite seriously, there's a lot of Jesus praying. And in my other church, I was on a worship team. I have sung things about Jesus, but I don't particularly pray to Jesus. And I don't pray to the Holy Spirit. I just pray to God. My one leeway I take is I tell people, well, I do quite, this sounds probably heretical, but I do count God as my father because in my teens, my parents were real kind of not coping. And I ran up against the honor your father and mother thing. And I tend to be one of those people that argues my point and then negotiates. So I'm like, well, fine, I'll honor my parents, but I still need to be parented. So I will honor them if you will parent me. So I'm kind of say God is my father because pretty much if he says go do something or whatever, I'm like, okay, well, you know, I should be listening, even without just the religious context of it. But I don't know what's really, I don't know what's appropriate. Like, I mean, I have just said all this stuff for years, and now I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give a Jewish answer. I think Father Eric will.
I'm going to give a Catholic answer because this is my live stream.
You guys don't want to trade?
Yeah. So, Jacob, here is the greatest argument for monarchical Trinitarianism that you will find within Roman Catholicism. And it is the doxology at the end of the Eucharistic prayer. So, Sandy, you would have heard this already. Now, the problem with our English translation is that it's barely English. So, if the Catholics on the stream will give me the freedom, I am going to retranslate it on the fly. O God, Almighty Father, all glory and honor is yours, through him and with him and in him, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, forever and ever. Amen. So basically, no matter, let's say, which person of the Holy Trinity that you would actually be talking to, you're always going before the throne of the Father. At least that's what that prayer in the Roman liturgy, that very ancient prayer in the Roman liturgy, would seem to indicate to me.
So even if it's through an intermediary, then it is still to God the Father.
All the glory and honor goes to him.
So if you don't mind pulling up the
okay,
Bible
here's
verses.
here's the Jew stuff now.
So this is Genesis 48.
Oh, okay.
And this is Jacob blessing the sons of Joseph at the end of his life. And this is, so verse 15, I decided to go KJV because I figured that's about as old school. I would prefer the Hebrew, but and he blessed Joseph and said, God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. So praying in the name of someone to God is an ancient Jewish tradition that I don't think in any way implies any of the things that I think most egalitarian Trinitarians think it does.
Okay, and that's my issue is I've always thought, like, I mean, I don't think I've ever thought of, like, you know, of I don't think I think in an egalitarian sense there. I don't think I ever have, not from the first time I walked up to the altar and said, sure, I'll do that. I just don't. That was my argument with God right away, day one, and, so.
Father Stephen wants to convince me that Christianity has always taught that Christians teach you can only pray to God the Father, but you should pray through Jesus and the saints. And as far as Judaism is concerned, that is permissible to Gentiles for sure.
Okay, so I'm not just being weird or insulting if I say the stuff along, because that's pretty much my stand for 40 years. And,
When I go to church, I don't sing any of the hymns because I know the Christians around me are thinking of Jesus as God. I don't test any of the people and say, do you think the Father is the only person of the Trinity that's ase or not, because none of them would know what I'm talking about. But to the degree that Christians believe that God the Father is ase and cannot be depicted, I would say Christianity is within the Noahide laws as not being idolatry.
Well, that's about the nicest thing that I think we're going to hear tonight. I have to get up and go to work tomorrow because my bishop's taking a trip on Tuesday. We need some office time together. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this a wrap. But my last parting thought, Sandy, is that, people usually don't go to church looking to pin other people to the ground with some minor infraction of dogmatic theology that 80% of the congregation doesn't particularly understand or care about. So I guess my sincere desire for you would just to be at peace when you are at your local Catholic church.
Yep.
And I agree with that 100, 200, 500%.
500% agreement out of Jacob. You got to watch out for Andrew K, though. He's a heretic hunter right there.
I look through the pews. Who haven't I seen here before? I'm gonna get them.
Oh my gosh!
Watch out for me.
Just stay away from New Jersey. They're all like that in New Jersey.
Nobody's even looking at the host. They're just looking around, looking out the windows. Is anyone peeking into the church? No, it doesn't happen.
All righty. Well, happy Sunday. Good night, and God bless you all.
Happy Sunday.
Thanks, Father.
Good to see you all.
Sunday, everybody.
Night.
Night.